Hello, today is Wednesday, September 10th, and welcome to episode 499 of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed 3 times a week on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. I'm NSI Senior Fellow Morgan Vigna. I'm joined today by Deputy Executive Director Martha Miller and Senior Fellow Bishop Garrison. Yesterday, Israel launched airstrikes targeting Hamas's leadership in Qatar's capital, Doha. Israel quickly claimed responsibility, saying that it was part of Operation Summit of Fire. As one might imagine, Qatar is pretty livid about the whole situation, calling Israel's action state terrorism. President Donald Trump, also a bit disappointed, is reportedly not thrilled with these developments. Hamas's leadership has blatantly used Doha as its headquarters outside of Gaza for years. And at the time, the militant group said its leaders were reviewing a recent ceasefire proposal backed by President Trump. One of the main targets of the strike was Hamas's chief negotiator, Khalil al-Hayya, but so far it looks like he dodged that bullet. Get it? 5 Hamas officials were not so lucky, including al-Hayya's son and the director of his office. These are individuals that are thought to be some of the key architects of the October 7th massacre. According to Israel, the attack was months in the making. Quote, for his part, Israel Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu described that the attack as a move that can open the door to the end of the war in Gaza, which could be true. I see where his logic is going with this, but I'm not sure if I actually buy it just yet. So, Bishop, obvious question. If Israel whacks Hamas's negotiators, what does this mean for the ceasefire talks and hostages that are still being held by by Hamas in Gaza?
Why this is just adds kind of more fuel to the fire. A big piece here is whether or not it allows for Netanyahu to continue to move with impunity. You're talking about another sovereign nation, and yes, we've seen this before with some of the previous attacks by Israel. But in this particular instance, whether we all agree with it or not, Qatar has long been on a level a U.S. ally. We keep them kind of at arm's length.
Non-NATO ally.
Since 2022, a major non-NATO ally, but long before that, when we go back to 1991 and their support of Operation Desert Storm, when we come into GWAT, I personally had soldiers that were going on R&R during my second deployment in Qatar, in Doha. Like that was a regular thing the United States military was doing. CENTCOM controlled some larger portion of its operations out of Doha. So this is something that they have been a regional ally for us for some time. So now they're saying that one, their government is arguing that they didn't get a proper heads up from the Trump administration. It seems as though the administration may not have gotten a proper heads up from Israel about this strike. So there are a lot of questions that are ongoing, and now Qatar is also talking about taking this potentially to some type of legal resolution, and they're looking at how they can hold Bibi accountable. So all of this begs the question of what was the both tactical and strategic advantage here and outcomes that they were actually looking for. Because as you mentioned, Morgan, it sounds as though they didn't actually achieve striking the target the way they had hoped. And it just kind of created a larger mess for an already an ongoing volatile situation. And we didn't have a heads up, potentially. We didn't have a proper heads up about this. So I think we need to see this play out a bit more and get a lot of these questions answered. But there are a lot of questions here that need answers.
Mm-hmm. So, Martha, Bishop alludes to Qatar and the United States' sort of long history with one another. Qatar has also a long history of being a neutral party, air quotes, for really icky diplomatic negotiations, including hosting an office for the, Afghan Taliban, hosting ISIS, Hezbollah, like you name it, all of the baddies, right? As Bishop noted, Qatar is also classified as a major non-NATO ally. That was done in 2022 under President Biden. And, of course, is the host to our Al Udeid air base. It's the largest one in the Middle East. And so question for you is, could this strike have a chilling effect in the region and raise concerns if a close U.S. partner or ally, such as Qatar, can come under attack by another U.S. ally, in this case, Israel. Like, who's next on the hit list here?
And I think that's exactly the message Israel wanted to send. They have, obviously, we all know that, who took out Hezbollah and Hamas leaders in the past, even though it's not been always publicly, it's not been publicized every time. Um, you know, Over the years, Israel has conducted raids and assassinations on the territory of our partners, in the Middle East, over the years. So, the difference here is this was very public, and it was, I think, intentionally trying to send a message to Hamas and to Qatar and other countries that they should stop harboring a terrorist entity that is a direct existential threat to Israel. So that's just my assessment. Whether it's the right strategy for Israel or not, I think is remains to be seen. I think during the war on terror, we certainly went after terrorists wherever they were, and we didn't hide the fact. And in fact, we publicly said, if you're harboring terrorists, if you're harboring Al Qaeda, we will strike. So in a way, it's following a precedent that we already set with the global war on terror. In any event, I mainly find it interesting that they went with such a dramatic strike, and also interested in seeing the after effects and what's to come.
All right. So I think this is going to come as a major shock to our listeners and viewers. But I think we have a fault line here between me and Bishop. October 7th was the worst terrorist attack in Israel's history. This is the attack that stands out in everyone's minds. However, Israel continues to experience terror attacks. They're often sponsored, glorified, and sanctioned, and or by Hamas. And I think what we saw just this last weekend, I mean, there was a terrorist attack that killed 6 Israelis in Jerusalem at a bus stop. Hamas celebrated this. And if Israel wants to reestablish regional deterrence against its adversaries, it needs to flex. It needs to respond and let its adversaries, its enemies know that any attack on Israel or its people is an act of war. And so when it comes to this specific strike in Doha, like all the region's back actors who land in Doha, Hamas relies on Qatar to house, feed, and protect their leadership. And yesterday, Israel sent a stark message to Hamas and, frankly, Qatar that if you kill our people, you present a threat to Israel's security, we will hunt you down and we will kill you. As Martha, as you said, they've done it before, and this shouldn't be such a huge shock. That is a wrap. Thanks always to Kelly Crowley, Taylor Lane, Claude Jennings, and the NSI staff for their help in producing today's episode. Join us on Friday, September 12th, for a special milestone, our 500th episode of Fault Lines. We'll bring together familiar voices and returning hosts for a conversation looking ahead to the next defining challenges for U.S. national security. Fault Lines is now on YouTube, so check out a channel for a video of today's episode. If you like what you heard or saw, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe.